on button for recording. You all are being recorded. Let me open up my agenda just to make sure I don't miss a thing. All right. It's 5:02 and we'll call the meeting of the Otter Creek Communication Union District September 15th meeting to order. This time we'll do a roll call. So we have John Hill, Benson.
Present.
Larry Corsell, Menden.
Present.
Jackie Zavella, Treasurer.
Present.
Terry Williams of Poultney.
Here.
Sam Jackson, Pittsford.
Here.
Marianne Goulet, West Rutland.
Here.
Amanda O'Connor, RRPC.
Here.
Andrew Quint, Chittenden.
Here.
Thomas Franco, Rutland City.
Present.
Anybody else that I did not call?
Cassandra Hayes Motion.
There you go. Okay. You
Chris
keep moving
Goshen.
up and down through that. Goshen, yeah. Goshen's this.
You forgot Hubbardton.
And Hubbardton, Chris Custer, Hubbardton.
Mhm.
Here, perfect. Okay, yeah, they were moving around so much on my screen. So we have more than a quorum, which is the first time in a while, which is fantastic. At this time, we'd like to look on to our next order of business, approving the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll
Second.
second. the-
Oh, go ahead.
Second from Cassandra, I sounded like.
Yep.
Any changes, modifications? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes appear to have, the ayes do have it. Agenda is approved. Next up, we have our executive committee update. And I'll tag team this with Amanda only because I got kicked off partway through with ironically enough bad internet. But we did transact some business on our last executive committee meeting, which included the identification and selection of the Rutland Regional Planning Commission to be our administrative rep on our contract. We sent out an RFP. They were the only people to reply. It was in line with what we've been paying from before, and I think, if I recall, if I've been informed correctly, it approved. Anybody else that was there want to chime in?
Sounds good.
Amanda, do you have anything to add?
It was also confirmed that Otter Creek CUD would be moving forward with at least a short-term contract with Seward and Associates to provide financial services.
Yes, we did transacted that business. Yes, which again, some people had concerns about the cost, but we did need to identify an accountant that would take us on, and they were willing to do so. So that will be done. So moving on, any questions about executive committee update before we move on to the next topic? Seeing none, nobody putting their hands up. Grant updates around our broadband innovation grant H315 and H360 funding. I turn this over to Amanda.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, as previously stated, the Broadband Innovation Grant is a two-part grant made up of a feasibility study and a business plan. And the feasibility study has been completed, I think, since February, March. But the business plan is on hold until we can identify a partner or partners that we would move forward, that Otter Creek would move forward with. And in order to initiate those conversations, partnership conversations, we need to have numbers and an idea of what we're partnering over. And that means a high-level engineering study. So the business plan is on hold till we complete the high-level engineering study, which brings us to H315. In August, you confirmed Finley Engineering as the recipient of the contract to perform that service. I think it was this month. We went through the final contract review process, which means a review alongside the state of that proposed contract, which was approved. So work has been able to begin, yay, on the high-level engineering study. And they've already, they're working on the mapping, and we'll be sending possibly a person out as early as first week of October So they'll be here on the ground to do some of their own assessments. So I think November is the current ETA for the high level engineering study. And alongside that study is also any guidance needed that is provided by Doug Dawson. And that is very exciting to have him on board underneath Finley for those services. As soon as we have more of that information, again, we can then actively pursue conversations with a potential partner or partners. And that leads to H360, which provides funding for, I think it's pre-construction. And that you need to have an identified partner for, but it's also a rolling application. So we're not missing a timeline. And there's, from my understanding, how it looks, there's a certain amount earmarked for each CUD. So we're not at risk. Yes, there are other CDs that are further ahead for any number of reasons, but we're good as is, and the state knows our current status. So Consolidated is one, obviously, that might be a partner. We've signed an NDA with them. That was back in May. We also, Otter Creek has an NDA signed with Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom. And I might be skipping agenda items. Not really, this is all wrapped up. Like I guess it's kind of number 7. And then I don't know if you read that Addison County / Maple Broadband announced that their selected ISP will be Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom to build out their entire region. So it'll be interesting to see how that potentially connects. That said, Otelco has hinted at they might be building out fiber in Benson, Hubbardton, and Sudbury. So there's 3 potential partners in there. So we're waiting to see how this unfolds. The state is also aware of all of those potentials, or all of that potential, and is connecting with ISPs to get updates as they are able to share.
Nice. That was a lot of information.
Yeah, sorry if that was fast.
No, that's fantastic. Any questions from the committee? Any members of the committee questions? No one raise a hand? Nobody? It's pretty comprehensive and is amazing.
I do want to add, though, that the first invoice that I sent in for reimbursement on H315, we just got reimbursement of $63,000 on Monday. So that is now in our checking account.
And it's going to go out to Finley, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
A lot of that, yeah.
The state did cut the check, which was fantastic.
They cut the check.
And the money is starting to flow towards those, the
Impending expenses.
yes, which we do have some. Any further questions before we move on to other updates? I guess maybe we'll talk about it, I guess, in other business. Want to just expound a little bit on the Otelco stuff. Administrative updates, we kind of stepped on this a lot earlier on, but that again, with our accounting services, we did select somebody in our grant administration RFP that was answered by RPCC has been approved by the executive committee. So thank you again, Amanda, and to Ed Bove of the Rutland Regional Planning Commission for being fantastic partners in this. I know that you're going well above and beyond what you've been doing. And while you guys are getting compensated, I don't think it's enough, in my personal opinion. Any questions about that from anybody? All right, moving on to VCUDA update.
That would be me.
Larry, our
Yeah.
VCUDA rep.
So VCUDA used to meet on Wednesdays, and so on September 1st, the meeting was canceled due to a number of members that they couldn't attend. So we don't have any report from them. And so now we are meeting on Mondays. from 10 to 11 a.m. We started on Monday, September 13th of this year. And then that Monday schedule is every second Monday will go to November 21st of 2022. So with their new schedule on Monday, I was already booked up with being on the select board and the Board of Civil Authority. We're going through a townwide reappraisal, and I had site visits all day that day. So they have not posted the minutes from that meeting, so I'm not sure what's come up. Some of this is a little bit of old news. So OCCUD has hired Will Anderson. He's the new interim program coordinator. He's got that position. And then we keep getting the Vermont Communication Broadband Board reports and the links to go on those meetings. I'm sure probably Amanda and Bill both get those. Those are long meetings and a lot of information there. It's hard to digest. A lot of it is getting out of the league, but I'm learning somewhat of what their terminology is. One of Christine Hallquist is the chair of the VCBB. She reported out that the Vermont Communication Broadband Board is not limited by the ARPA funds requirements, and the VCBB has the authority to determine and fund administrative expenses. Christine Hallquist added that there are two top priorities. A, make sure all CUDs have a healthy administration, and B, get to design and engineering as quickly as possible. So I think the other issue, which I think went out, was about the OCCUD dues. That wasn't brought up at the last meeting, but it's going to be coming up this fall. I think that's going to fall on the executive committee to look to see how that's going to work. If our number of miles is correct, and that's what they're going to base on what they come up with the dues. With the build out with the consolidated communications in our region to, I think it was 30,000 properties. I'm just not sure how that affects what our dues is going to be. So that I expect to come up sometime in October. So we'll keep an eye on that. So yeah, it's kind of a short report, but again, they didn't meet in September 1st, and then I wasn't able to attend the last meeting due to other commitments.
Thank you, Larry. And again, thank you so much for just agreeing to be the rep. Because those meetings, those meetings can be.
They like to meet. Yeah.
They do like to meet.
Yeah. And then I am in communication probably every other week with Lieutenant Governor Molly Gray, just on broadband. So she's of course a huge supporter, and as much as the state doesn't want to get involved in the build out, they're up there for our guidance. So we'll see what comes out of it. So
excellent.
Yep.
Any questions for Larry?
I got a question.
Terry?
So when they decide on the dues, is it gonna be each community municipality that's gonna have to kick in for that? Where's the money gonna come from?
yeah, well, it'll be all 10 of the CUDs will be paying dues to the CUDA. And I guess it's based on the number of maybe Bill or Amanda could help out here, but the number of, I guess, buildable miles that each community has. And they charge, I don't have the chart in front of me, but so much, it's based on so many cents per mile or foot or something.
And just to be clear, we absolutely positively cannot pass on any of these costs to the municipality. So I'm not going to bill and Pulteney out. It's a cost that'll be borne by the CUD.
Okay, just wanted to know because we're getting into our budget process in Pulteney, and if we need to budget some money for it, I wanted to know. Thank you.
And I think that was a big promise up front to get any municipality to join, was that we would not be passing on costs. So we would be using grant funds for that.
Okay,
If the CUD votes to continue with the CUDA.
perfect.
Any other questions? Looking across the top, seeing none, moving on to our next our next item, build out news as available. And I know Amanda touched upon this a little bit, and I mean, we obviously aren't anywhere close to building. We're still doing our high level engineering. However, there are incumbent providers within our borders that are building, as you know, people may or may not have read or been aware of in their own communities. Consolidated has been doing a lot of work in Rutland County generally, and within our CUD particularly. And I mean, I know I've seen the trucks here in Brandon. They've let us know that they were going to be coming here. And again, they don't share specifics with us with regard to, well, we're building out to this address or that address. They won't do that. And even if they did share that with us, it would put them at a competitive disadvantage for us to say, oh, they're going to build out on, Main Street and this street. And that's, we don't have access to that information. We can surmise that they're probably going to build out to some of the more densely populated areas within our CUD. But again, that's just guesses on our part. And for us to put it out there as fact would be foolhardy and wrong, quite frankly, just because we don't have that inside information. Amanda?
The closest thing to specific along the side that same note is there had been a question about whether or not they'd be building out in Chittenden. And while I think they're building out to the majority of Pittsford, Chittenden is not included in that build out, unfortunately. And I did hear that they have built out, I think, all of Proctor. And that'll be going online in the next 2 weeks, I believe. But I think they'll be wrapping up their overall Rutland region build out by the end of this year. So 2021. I'm sure weather permitting, but that was the closest thing to any like real specific information. And we should be getting more soon as their online date comes for each build out. So they had mentioned before that once they're within like 2 weeks of going online, they do a press release, in which case information is more public. And we should know more then.
And here in Brandon, they have started sending out these cards. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's these pre-subscription cards that have information about their rates and what they were looking at charging for their services, which is pretty exciting, again, for us here in Brandon. And again, I imagine other communities where they're doing the build outs as well, that you'll see some of that information.
Bill, if I may.
Yes, Thomas.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think we should be asking for specifics, but I do think that, I mean, you mentioned something with regard to them letting you know they were coming. Was that direct outreach to your municipal government, or do you mean through the OCCUD?
So I'd say both. I mean, like, we've been in contact with, speak for the town of Brandon, Jeff Austin reached out to Brandon, specifically letting us know that they were rolling through town. We knew that they were going to be rolling through town. I told my town manager to reach out to them because we knew that, within their grand plan that they'd announced back in, may have been March of this year. I can't remember, February, March, when they're talking about all these different areas that they were going to be hitting up, that Brandon was one of those towns, that Proctor's was one of those towns. So we generally knew that it was going to be happening. The Rutland City was one of those places that they were
Right.
coming
Yeah.
through.
I mean, I think we knew based on public info, and I guess a misalignment that I think that I would like to see maybe cleared up is just, well, first off, there was no outreach to Rutland, to our board, to let us know, like, hey, we're rolling through, and not specifics of addresses or anything like that by any means. I'm saying, I think some updates to Rutland City would have been warranted to say, hey, we're rolling through. And I know we plan to talk more on the other business notes, so I'll hold some of my comments, but that was the first thing. And then the misalignment there is, I think, I guess relying so much on information that's getting put out publicly anyway doesn't really seem like a partnership or advantage. So I would think that we would have some value add to having a partnership with them. And so I just wanted to make that point, not specifics, not addresses, nothing proprietary, just I think we need to identify what our value add should be with having a partnership with them. and then identify ways to make that actualized. So that's the only thing I wanted to add there, but I know we have a lot to discuss under other business related to that.
For
Yeah.
sure. And we'll get into other business. Also talking about, again, some Amanda touched upon it with the information around Otelco. They made it again, this is sort of the way the information is disseminated. They put out a press release. We plan on building within these communities over the next 3 or 5 years. We reach out to them. We work on trying to get a little closer with that information. So then maybe we can partner and not overbuild in some of the same areas, or work with them to perhaps serve those areas. And we work with them to make the build out happen more quickly, or in places where they're not as densely populated. I think that's going to be a lot of our dance that we're going to have with some of these. And again, this is my own personal opinion, not necessarily the opinion of the entire board, but that, this is going to be sort of the dance that we're going to be having with them, because they're going to build where it makes the most sense for them financially. And if we can underwrite, make it a little more financially viable from the build out to addresses that are spread out. It's not necessarily a Rutland City thing, but in places like Hubbardton or Sudbury, we're only talking about a total of 700 addresses that they can get over 30 miles. Making that financially viable for them is where I think CUD can potentially help and partner with them to step in.
Do we have a way of tracking where we have fiber now and where they're building fiber?
We don't internally have anything with the CUD right now. There's a state map that sort of gets updated. I think Amanda could probably speak this a little more, but there's a state map that's woefully out of date about where fiber is, where the dark fiber lies, where CCI's fiber is, where VTEL's fiber is.
I think it's dated 2019 at this point.
And and I don't know what sort of triggers that reporting to the state for that information. When they're compelled to let the state know that, oh yeah, by the way, we've run all this fiber in the city, or we've run all this fiber in Proctor, and here's where it is now.
Is that something that VCUDA could advocate for, more transparency with regard to updating the state information we have?
I would think that would be something that VCUDA would definitely want to look at and push for, just so we know where the fiber is, so we're not overbuilding.
Yeah, I just think information at this point in the stage that we're in, information is vital. So the restrictions that are placed on it are understandable, but if we can't make progress in gaining information, it's going to be hard for us to act in a way that's advantageous to us, which I think, we're all here for a reason, right? We want to gain those advantages and protect our interests. So yeah, I would say that if we want to relate that to VCUDA, that would be nice. Yep.
Sure.
I would say the only caveat is that we don't have a partnership yet. We have a non-disclosure agreement. So if we were to get any information, we can't share it. And we haven't acted upon that NDA because we've said that we lack the informational resources to pursue something closer to a partnership. So it's still pretty much in its infancy in terms of the depth of dialogue, for what that's worth. And once we have an idea of our scope and region, then yeah, it would definitely help to know what it is they're doing. But right now, we're not at a loss so much for not knowing. It's a nice to know. It would be great to know. But we really have to get our high level engineering study done. And once we're closer to a partnership, we'll get more information, I'm sure. But it's just, at this point, a lot of theoretical, for what that's worth.
Any further thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, there's a lot of sources for information, and it does get overwhelming. So the VCUDA website, just you Google that and VCUDA Vermont, and you can go on there and you can see their minutes and agendas, policies going back from the very beginning up until the last meeting. And then a lot of it is, the Vermont Community Broadband Board, which is a lot, but Christine Hallquist is the executive director. You can communicate with her. It's Christine.Hallquist, that's HALLQUIST @vermont.gov. Her phone number is 802-636-7853. And she has a lot of information, but it's kind of fluid. And if you like a lot of technical data, that's what you're going to get into with the Vermont community. It's just, I have to look up a lot of this stuff. Fundamental passive optical network, FTTX architecture. Keep 4 of 32 ports available for future growth, and fiber sparing and reservation recommendations to assist with plant equipment and fiber sizing, optical extents, budgets. And it's just, I'll let them figure all this out. It's not going to be me. Whew. But the information's out there, and then you just have to disseminate it. So.
Yeah, and it can be quite intimidating, but I mean,
It is.
the one good thing is that, if you have a question, you can always ask, and
You can,
somebody
yeah.
down the line will know.
Yeah.
So looking at any more questions around the build out news is available. See none. Moving on to item number 8, new member recruitment. We could always use more members, I guess. I mean, we've done a good job of getting a decent number of people here, and our number of communities in our CUD. I don't know who else we really have that are really prime targets for us, Amanda.
Maybe Killington. They're pretty well set, but they still lack some fiber. I think it's half of Shrewsbury, but they've been hesitant. I think some of their community members expressed concern at the installation of fiber resulting in the loss of their copper lines, and they weren't comfortable with that. So I don't know. Otherwise, it is a little complicated adding in members where we may or may not be able to build out, because there might be some degree of overbuilding, which would put us at a disadvantage for grant applications. So we're here if anyone wants to join, but we also need to be aware of what is already built out and what would actually be included in a potential study area or build out area, for what that's worth.
Am I understanding that new members or new towns, municipalities to come on board has to go to a town vote? Because the emergency order from the government has been lifted where select boards could join, but now I think it goes to a town vote, which would be March.
I've heard both, that they can still have a select
Okay.
board vote. So we would need to seek clarification from Rob Fish on that, and see if it's changed since he last stated they could still do a select board vote. But otherwise, yeah, it would be a March.
I'll ask them.
question.
Yep.
Any other questions on new member recruitment? People say they want to join, tell them it's fantastic. Moving on to other business. Any other business to be conducted?
Yeah, we wanted to touch on an article that was in the newspaper. I think it was over the weekend, in regards to Consolidated's build out in the city, and some issues with potential property damage as a result of the contractor that they're using, I think Eustis Cable. I think unfortunately they might have touched the wrong hedge, but there maybe are also smaller reported incidences as per that news article. It said that there were other cases. I don't have any specifics.
A coin.
Yeah, it's a coin. As such, we did hear from Consolidated, who was concerned that we had negative sentiments towards them, or that there's information that we wanted that they weren't giving. So we might potentially be putting out a joint article, saying that we're communicating to the degree which we're able, or I guess they're able. And also this does create a good segue for us to do some PR in the sense of letting the community being the region, know where the CUD currently stands. I will confess to being a little overwhelmed with work, and I have not been as up on my PR game as the CUD probably needs. This will probably be that opportunity, is to get some updates out region wide. I think Thomas was curious or wanted to touch on this as well, and see if there had been any other issues in any other municipalities with the build out.
Yeah,
Thomas, go ahead.
No, and I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this up, Amanda. You know, I'm not sure if folks have read the article, but it has become a very big issue in our city, at least. I know this references Alderman Garuso's hedges, which may have been the wrong ones to touch that day, but we have heard from other constituents that this is an issue, and I'm not sure the extent. Just as Amanda, like, I don't have specifics of which hedges or which addresses, but regardless, in the public view, it has become a large issue. And so we do have this meeting we are scheduling with them in the next couple of weeks. Our board chair has asked me to speak to the CUD, to you all, to see if there are other concerns regarding communications with Consolidated. As I've mentioned, you know, I think where our board starts to get kind of frustrated is when we hear about it pretty much when everyone else hears about things. And so that's kind of where some of the frustrations are coming through that are being relayed to me that I'm now bringing here. So I wanted to just ask if there are any communication lags with any of you with Consolidated. And then the second thing just being if you've had any, if you've heard of any issues regarding, you know, disruption to the area. I know that they're largely depending on subcontractors and ultimately, you know, the responsibility lands with them. So that's kind of where we are. And I just wanted to see what other folks are hearing or experiencing.
Yeah, I can start. In Mendon, we've had an issue with, they've subbed out to a tree company to do the trimming ahead of the installers, and that's not working. The installers get there and the tree trimming has not been done. So now they have to do it. And that's not their line of business. They're not professionals at it, and they do the best they can. So in my instance, I got to watch the whole operation. My driveway's 600 feet long, and it took 2 installers the entire day to run the line to my house. There was trimming that had to be done, so they had to do it. They couldn't get their chainsaw started, so I gave them my chainsaw, and I don't know what they cut with it, but I think rocks. They took a pile of brush in their truck and filled it and left a pile of brush for me, and that was it. And then the next day they did my neighbors, got their truck stuck down there, did a bunch of trimming and left brush for him. He pulled them out with his tractor. And then another day they came to do a guy wire anchor and then left one at the top of the road. So that's just me and my neighbor. So I hope they're not performing like that all over town. So, and the select board, we never heard anything about their build out in town. So, yeah, so there's been a few issues.
Larry, is it a local contractor or someone from outside the area?
The installers, there's 2 guys from Middlebury just came back to work. They're a subcontractor for Consolidated. It might be, I'm not sure what their name is on the truck, could be ECB. The tree company that came up and said they were going to do the trimming but never showed up were, I think it's called Asplund or something like that. They got the orange trucks, you'll see them around. And then a week and a half after the installation, the tree guy showed up, and I said to him, the guys had to do their own trimming. And he said, well, our guys that do the trimming, we couldn't find the place. I said, well, all you got to do is follow the utility poles in the line, you'll get here. So, so I hope Consolidated is not paying to have this trimming done, and it's being done by the installers and not the tree company. So, and then the other issue is, you know, they don't communicate with the property owners. So if they run it close to your house to the last pole, and they'll leave a coil of fiber optic hanging from the pole. If you want to run an underground, there needs to be a communication because you've got to get that done ahead of time if you want to hitch up to their fiber optic. Because once the ground freezes, that window of opportunity is gone. So, it's just a little bit of a lack of communication in Mendon. Other than that, it's going pretty smoothly.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'll speak on West Rutland's. We had really only one major issue, and they installed a big junction box kind of on an existing utility pole at an intersection, and it wasn't on the ground and it wasn't high up. It was really in the line of sight of cars when they're trying to pull out onto a major road. So a resident called and said, I can't see, it's a difficult intersection anyway, and they kind of just installed it right there. So it took me, I don't know, 4 phone calls to get to somebody, and then they went and looked at it. And then I know somebody that works at Consolidated. So he called and they didn't really see a problem. And I'm like, well, I want it moved, because if you're a little old lady, you're not in a big truck, you can't really see. And I didn't like where it was, and they said, fine, we'll move it. So they moved it. And then we also have a lot of coil on poles everywhere. It's like old wire, new wire. I don't know. There's just coils everywhere. And sometimes it's on the ground, and people are trying to mow around it. And it's yeah. And we did get notified by the same gentleman that Bill said called, and then the friend that I know that works there called again, because I never touched base with them in the first place. And, they're already trying to sell us on it. And I said, okay, well, we'll look for it, when it comes. But they're in and out of town. Like, you think they're done, and then they show up for another couple of days and they're gone again. And then they come back like a month later. So I don't know the rhyme and reason, but they've definitely been around all summer.
Great.
Else in Consolidated?
All right.
I can speak to Brandon's experience. That we've seen a lot of trucks in the last month and change. All kinds of at least 3 different contractors that are running the schools. We haven't had any issues. Anybody complained to the town offices? See flaggers. It seems like they're being safe. They reached out, I think, to our public works to make sure that there wasn't anything they needed to do to get into the road. As far as their safety regulations.
Bill, you need to speak up a little bit.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm cooking dinner. Again, we've had no issues with that so far. The 3 different contractors we've seen, we've all been very respectful. We haven't had any too many backups of traffic. Certainly, segment 6. I think people around here understand that with infrastructure improvements come, issues. As I say, you can't make an omelet without breaking an egg or 2. And there's going to be these kinds of projects happen. There's going to be things that aren't going to go as planned. So that's been sort of the attitude. There hasn't been a lot of complaints on Brandon, any at all.
Sorry, can y'all hear me? Great. So Amanda, I definitely recognize the need to, if we're in this early stage, which I didn't quite realize we were still early on in our partnership phase, but I definitely recognize the need to put out, that they want this like good PR, right? Like we're trying to work together and, the whole selling this to the community, right? We obviously all see the importance of what they are offering in terms of the service itself. My question is with regard to sort of a joint PR, that's representing the CUD, right? Like we're all part of this, at least from Rutland's point of view. I know that from Rutland City, it would be hard for me to go back to the board and say, oh, we put out this joint statement, saying communication's all great, if our meeting with them goes poorly, right? So I guess my question is who decides, I guess, is the executive board going to look at the joint statement? Do we all get a kind of say and if we sign on or not? Are we signing on as one entity? Or I guess I'd like to know if we can have a view of that before it went out and also decide if we agree with what's being said.
Yeah, no, presumably once there's a draft, at least the executive committee would review that. But there's nothing more than a concept at this point, and it was after the executive committee's meeting. So it would go through a process. If everyone would prefer to be involved in that, then we could try and table that to the next board meeting for review and approval. Yeah, no, I heard that they might be attending. He's been in touch with Matt. Jeff Austin's been in touch with Matt Whitcomb, Alderman Chair. So they might be attending Monday's Alderman meeting or one after. I'm not sure, but that was on the horizon.
Yeah, it'll be in the
there'd be a
next couple
process.
weeks. I just wanted to make sure that happened before any sort of joint statement went out. So not as to undermine the business that takes place at that meeting.
I mean, and as a CUD, certainly we have the ability to request, an audience with them or have a meeting with Consolidated, just as the city is now, to find out where they're at and what they're doing. I mean, I have no problem with that. I don't want, what I don't want to see is that, that caused me a little concern is that, that there was this image out there that they weren't communicating with the CUD, which they have been doing. They did let us know. They're not, again, letting us know every move, and not that I think we expected them to let us know every move, especially considering we don't have any kind of a partnership. There's simply a non-disclosure agreement with them saying that we're not going to reveal what's happening. So that almost puts us as a disadvantage. We can't speak on their behalf because we're not even given permission to speak on their behalf. We go with what the public has for information right now. And until if and or when we move into a joint partnership with them, I think it gives us a little more freedom to work as partners with them versus just someone on the outside looking in trying to find out what they're doing. Thoughts, questions, comments? All right, so
Why don't we just
So-
table it to the next meeting before we send any statement out and.
a motion from Thomas, second from Mary Ann. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Ayes appear to have it. We will table any discussion about a joint PR with put out a joint PR statement with Consolidated until the next meeting, which will be the third Wednesday of October. And that should also give, I think, Rutland some time to feel better or worse about the relationship with Consolidated. Looking at the 20th of October.
Mhm.
And that was, hopefully that date still works for them. That means the executive committee meets the week before, which will be the 13th. And again, we can always, we always have each other's emails. If we have any questions, anything we want to share with each other,
You just muted yourself, Bill.
I'm sorry, my light again. I would encourage everybody to, if you have any questions as a concerned citizen, even, if there's a contractor moving through your town, you don't know what's going on, just, give them a call. I mean, that's what I would do. With that, moving on to, I think, everyone's favorite agenda item. I don't have my agenda in front of me.
You're good.
Are we at that point where someone make a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Chris,
First damn motion of the night.
I'll second that.
excellent. Andrew, the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, thanks everybody for showing out. This is a great meeting. I was glad to have let's keep up the momentum and have yet another quorum so we can meet again next month.
Good.
Everybody.
Good night.
Everybody.
Have a good night.